It's the man who killed under the commands of a dog, terrorizing the city's young and beautiful.
In New York early this morning, the .44 caliber killer tried to kill again and almost did. His latest victims, a young couple, were hospitalized in critical condition. The gunman first struck a year and 2 days ago. Since then, he has taunted police and written to a newspaper columnist warning he would strike again, and he always has.
By ruthlessly stalking the city streets, he managed to become New York's notorious killer. A young David Berkowitz was born. Unfortunately for young Berkowitz, his biological mother left him within a few days of his birth. The newborn Berkowitz was later adopted by a loving couple, Pearl and Nathan Berkowitz of the Bronx, who were hardcore Jewish that owned a Jewish retail store. The couple were childless until Berkowitz entered their life, raising Berkowitz as their only child. Berkowitz didn't fit in with people in his early life. As a child, he was frequently bullied for being Jewish. Due to this scenery, he lost interest in education, even though he was of above-average intelligence. In his late childhood, Berkowitz was recalled of having a troubled life as his heinous crimes of theft and his unusual interest in arsonist-like behavior increased. His neighbors and relatives saw Berkowitz as being spoiled, difficult, and a bully. His adoptive parents consulted at least one psychotherapist due to his misconduct. However, this only increased his misbehavior as his public school records were outstanding in behavioral conducts. At the age of 12, his stepmother passed away from breast cancer, leaving his life at home distressing due to the dislike of his father's new wife. He spent his hard life living with his stepfather and his second wife while attending high school and college. In 1971, Berkowitz joined the U.S. Army and was stationed in South Korea for part of his service. His experience in the military was a significant period in his life, influencing his behavior and mindset. After serving his time in the U.S. Army, Berkowitz returned and attended college.
Mob murders not only mess up sidewalks, they also hurt neighborhood reputations. Bensonhurst in Brooklyn is a perfect example. A lot of very nice people live there who wouldn't think of breaking the law. But the neighborhood takes a bad rap because of the few who do.
New York was facing several big problems. The city was dealing with a lot of crime, and it wasn't the best to live here in the 70s. At the same time, the city was in a serious financial crisis, almost going bankrupt because it didn't have enough money to pay its bills. Many people in the city were struggling with drug addiction, which made the crime problem even worse. Drug use were becoming more common, leading to more people getting involved in illegal activities.
The looters ripping through whole blocks of stores within a couple of hours after the lights went out. Hundreds of off-duty officers called in and were back on patrol in about the same time, but the packs of roving thieves hit so many places at once in some areas that countless stores were stripped bare before police arrived.
Many businesses failed in this environment, and the innocent suffered the most as a result of the rising crime. New York City's nightlife was a big part of the city, and for many people, it was where they started their criminal activities. At night, they were full of murderous and criminal activities, while during the day, it was completely empty, until the Son of Sam arrived.
Police have been engaged in an intensive hunt for a man known as the .44 caliber killer. He's suspected of already murdering 4 women and 1 man, and there's widespread apprehension that his crime spree is not over.
Berkowitz began a series of violent crimes, initially using a knife, but later switching to a handgun, earning him the name .44 caliber killer. His crime spree targeted young women and men, often attacking them while they were in parked cars. He usually targeted his victims in areas such as Bronx, Queens, and Brooklyn. He frequently returned to the crime scenes and showed a continued enjoyment of his actions. and it was his way of taking gratitude for achieving successful murders. For Berkowitz, committing these crimes was relatively easy because of the chaos in New York City. The NYPD was very busy and couldn't solve all the crimes, which made it simpler for Berkowitz to carry out his attacks.
The first victim was killed in front of her Bronx apartment building last July 29th. She was 18-year-old Donna Loria, who was sitting in a parked car with a friend late at night when her parents heard the shots.
My wife comes screaming in the hall. It was shot. I ran down. By the time I got down, she was dead in the street. And that was it. There was nobody around.
The first shooting from Berkowitz targeted a young woman called Donna Loria.
My daughter was 18 years old, and that's what he took out of my heart, 18 years.
Donna Loria and Jody Valenti, both friends, sat together in Valenti's car, discussing their evening. As Loria opened the car door to exit, she noticed a man approaching rapidly. The man carrying a weapon fired, striking Loria and Valenti, killing Loria instantly and injuring Valenti severely. The killer quickly turned and ran away from the scene. Valenti later described the killer and was supported by local neighbors who reported seeing a suspicious man with the same description Valenti gave. Berkowitz's crimes continued across New York. By 1977, he was known worldwide as the .44 caliber killer. And many people of the New Yorkers were terribly afraid of him, resulting in empty streets and constant terror in the state of New York. On 1977, April 17th, New Yorkers woke up to horror. Another tragic murder had occurred.
A couple sitting in a parked car. Both Valentina Soriani, 18, and her boyfriend Alexander Issa, shot dead.
But this one was particularly interesting and quite frightening.
He's hinted in a letter to the press that he will strike again, possibly tonight. For months,
the press referred to the perpetrator as the .44 caliber killer, labeling him a sexist murderer as he only targeted women. This angered him, leading to the killing of his first male victim, and his declaration of a new name, the Son of Sam, in a letter to the press. "I am deeply hurt by your calling me a woman hater. I am not, but I am a monster. I am the Son of Sam," was the few words he said. This letter frightened many, especially his last victims.
Mrs. Nisa Moskowitz says the ordeal never ends. Her daughter Stacy died in an ambush of a parked car in Brooklyn, slain in the classic pattern of the .44 killer.
On July 1977, Berkowitz attacked another couple by deeming them to be his last victims. Both Stacy Moskowitz and Robert Violante were sat in a car under a dim streetlight when Berkowitz appeared and fired 4 shots, hitting both individuals in the head before fleeing into the park. Unfortunately, the female victim Stacy Moskowitz tragically passed away. The male victim Robert Violante survived, but had to deal with years of trauma. Unfortunately for Berkowitz, he was arrested a few days after the crime took place due to his lack of awareness, leading to these being his last victims.
The city of New York can rest easy this morning because of the fact that the police have captured a man whom they believe to be the Son of Sam.
Like to see David Berkowitz go to the electric chair?
Yes. Yes, I'd give 10 years of my life.
The notorious killer was captured. However, people were skeptical and confused it was David Berkowitz, as he was always.
Nice, quiet, a little moody, kept to himself.
But later it was official he was the Son of Sam. During his last killing spree, David Berkowitz was identified by a middle-aged woman who was walking her dog. She noticed a traffic warden circling around cars, and as soon as the warden left, Berkowitz was seen emerging from a car holding a weapon.
Towards me, and he looked me straight in the face. He looked at my dog, and right here, we crossed each other. So he had his arm straight down. He had a long thing like a bell sticking up his sleeve, and He made a left turn. I heard a boom. I didn't know he was a killer. I didn't know he looked nice.
After receiving her report, the police identified the cars the traffic warden had come across. Upon thorough investigation, they pinpointed the car owner, who was David Berkowitz. When the police attempted to contact Berkowitz, his neighbor, Wheat Carr, was the only one accessible at that time who answered the phone. She informed the police about who Berkowitz was and also revealed that he had killed their black Labrador. The mention of the name Sam led the police to connect him to the Son of Sam killings. Later that evening, the police waited outside Berkowitz's residence, as they did not have a warrant, and also they saw his car that had a gun in the back seat, determining he was involved. When Berkowitz eventually came out of his house, the police quickly apprehended him and placed him in handcuffs. His first words were, "Well, you got me," as he smirked wildly like a beast. After David Berkowitz was arrested, he was questioned and confessed to the killings. He also revealed startling details about a dog possessed by a demonic entity that pressured him to kill innocent people. He mentioned that his neighbor's dog came in demonic form and told him to kill pretty young women. This caught the attention of American journalist Maury Terry, who studied this case day and night. Terry found that the idea of demonic entities appearing in animal form was commonly involved in cases tied to satanic cults. He became convinced that more than one person was involved in the case. Terry interviewed Berkowitz multiple times, and eventually Berkowitz himself admitted to the involvement of these so-called assailants.
Well, let's talk about that for a bit, just a little bit. Yeah. Now, there were a series of 8 attacks known as the Son of Sam killings. Yeah. Did you do all of them?
I was at all of them. I was at, more or less at all of them, scouting the areas and reporting back on likely targets and things, and I did not pull the trigger at every single one of them. And
Maury Terry even wrote a book about this case, revealing many hidden details. The involvement of multiple killers was a shocking revelation. It frightened many, and parents were terrified that their children might be the next victims. Since it wasn't confirmed by the police, but rather considered a conspiracy, the question of whether there was more than one Son of Sam remains a mystery to this day. David Berkowitz was sentenced to 6 consecutive life sentences after pleading guilty to multiple shootings. In 1987, while serving his sentence, he converted to Christianity and adopted the name the Son of Hope. This transformation marked a profound change in Berkowitz, who began to express deep regret for his past actions. He is alive and well to this day in prison at the age of 71, and finds well-being in spreading his wisdom and making this world a better place from his dark past.